So if you remember in part one, I got to this point of assembling this centre console, the rear half anyway, gluing it all together, clamping it and leaving it over the weekend. The glue has now gone off and I'll remove all these clamps. I've also cut the board for here, which will be the lid to the box. I need to cut piano hinge for here. Now we're at this point, I can put this back in the vehicle, I can get it into its correct position, and then I can start to make templates for the front part of the console. Because if you remember, this is a two-part console. I'm not going to make this in one big piece, just because I think it'll be tricky to fit in as one big piece. It will be easier to make it in two pieces. I could make it in two pieces and then join it together and then cover it. It's easier to cover it in two pieces rather than in one, as one big piece. It's just much easier as two separate items that are joined together once they're covered. So if you make anything like this, this is what you got to think about. You got to think about all the steps down the road, not just the step you're working on, not just making it and getting it to fit. It's the covering part as well. You want to make that as easy for yourself as possible. If you remember in part one, I said that I'm going to round over this front edge here and also round over these corners here, but I'm only going to round over to where the box lid comes to. I'm not going to round all the way along. I need to mark where the box lid will finish and then round over these corners. These are going to be quite a shallow round over. They won't be that big. It's just to kind of knock off the edge and make it a little bit more user friendly really. The front round over will be a lot larger. I want to get that as round as I can. So I can now put this in the vehicle and start on the next part. This bit is now in the correct position. I need to now make a template for this part of the front here. Because of its shape and the way it is, I'm going to have to do a bit of a measure here. So that's 12 inches, 9 inches to that. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to just draw a line from here to here and then offer it up and see what the angle is actually like. So that is probably not too bad with the angle. You can see that this here isn't quite right, and also I'm not very keen on this gap here, but this will be going in after this one. Once I've made this piece, this will be the first piece that fits in, and then this will fit in after. So I don't mind having a little step here because that will then fit on top of the step, if you know what I mean. So now we're a good fit there. When I cut the final pieces, what I'll need to do is trim off enough just to allow for the leather to wrap around. ½ inch. So plus ½ inch. Just put a few staples in there as well, just to hold it into position. So from this piece that I've now made up for one side of the forward part of the centre console, I've cut a full piece. So that's one side. I did the same principle on the opposite side to get the piece for the opposite side. So that's two sides. Cut a top piece like I did with the rear part of the console, and I joined it together. This is the piece now joined together. So it's got the two side pieces and then the top, and then this piece across the front here. So I'm going to use this piece here to attach this part to the rear part of the console. So I'll get the rear part now and I'll show you. So this is the rear part, and the rear part is going to join to the front part here like that. I've drawn a line where it's actually going to fit because it's not going to touch here. I need to have clearance here for the thickness of leather, so probably 2mm clearance there. So I've drawn a line where I need to bring it to here. And the way I'm going to attach this is with quite big bolts. I'm going to put 2 big bolts in and put T-nuts on the back of this piece here. So what I'm going to have to do is to clamp these together, drill the holes, put the T-nuts in. Once I attach it together, I can see where all the round overs need to be, because I don't want to round over all of it. So I round over all of it. So if it's rounded over all the way down here, then it'll look a bit strange. So I have to stop the round over at this point here. And then I'll actually trim this bit up. Once this is trimmed up and covered in leather, I can then double check this fitment against this piece just to make sure it will fit, because I don't want to trim them both up and then realise I've not left enough clearance in these parts here. So I'll mark where the round over needs to stop on that side. Same on this side. So I'll now take it apart. I'll do my clearances on here, do the round overs, and then, yeah, then we'll call it a day for now. It's Saturday afternoon. I need a haircut desperately. So I'm gonna, yeah, I think I'm gonna leave it like that now and go and get a haircut. So the next time you see me, this will be a bit shorter, and we should be wrapping this in leather. So I'll see you then. So it's Monday morning, and so I've done all the rounding over on this piece. So there's a large round over on the front, and then the smaller ones just on the edges here. I'm now ready to start the covering of this in the same colour leather as the dash. First I need to make a pattern. So it is literally a pattern of the sides and the top. The sides are symmetrical, so I only need one pattern. I'm not going to use two. Got the patterning plastic here. So if you want to know what the patterning plastic is called, it's called Fibretex Clear. I'll leave a link in the description to how you can buy it. All I'm going to do with this is just place it onto the patterning plastic and draw around this. It's easy enough of a shape to do that. So just using a black marker pen. So I have the two patterns. I have one for the side and obviously one for the top. Now I've marked on the pattern where I need to add any extra, so the plus are there and the plus are there and the plus are here. Means that I'm adding the width of a ruler to the leather when I cut it out. Done the same with this one. Now I'm only going to cut this much out here, on this top part. This will have a strip of leather on top, so I don't need to cut a full piece of leather here just for this strip. It will be covered with a hinge, so having a join in the leather somewhere won't make any difference. Now effectively this is just a rectangle, but I can't cut it out as a rectangle. The reason is because this bit here, the leather's going to have to come inside here and get stretched into this spot here. If I do that, then the seam that runs along this edge here will end up being pulled this way. So what I have to do is, when I cut out the leather, I have to add the amount that I think is going to be pulled inwards. So it's a kind of an estimation or a guesstimation of where you think you need to add it, and then hopefully you've got it right. I do have a bit of tolerance because I've got some extra fabric, some extra leather on the end here that I can pull and adjust if I need to, if there's any wrinkles in it. But as long as these two seams, the seams down this edge here and the opposite edge here, are running straight, that's the main thing, and then I get no creases at the top here. This is not going to be glued into place along the top or down the sides, it's just going to be stapled into position. The only part that will be glued will be this bit here. So when I come to cover it, I will, obviously it'll have the 3mm scrim foam wrapped on all of this, but not here, not on this bit here. This is going to get glued in with just wood glue, but it's going to get glued in with the leather wet. So I will wet this part of the leather here, I will put the wood glue in, I will then use this piece of wood here that I've cut that fits in there, put this on top, clamp it into position, and because the leather's wet, it becomes a little bit more, well, quite a lot more supple and a lot stretchier. So it will stretch into this position without forming too many wrinkles, I hope. It shouldn't do. It shouldn't do. I've done this technique before on other things. I'll leave the link in the description to a job where I've done it with a very large part and had to do a lot of stretching of the leather. But this is just a small little insert, so it's not a major issue. So hopefully we add the right amount, then the seams here should stay straight and we shouldn't have any wrinkles on the top here. If we do, I can pull them out with the extra that's here on this end, and obviously this is going to be cut away here, so whatever I've got to pull underneath I can kind of adjust the wrinkles if there is any, and a bit of steam will help as well. Wrap this in foam now, then I'll cut the leather out, I'll sew the three pieces together, do the top stitching because we're going to have top stitched seams, and then I can start the fitting. So I'm just going to use spray adhesive and spray this into place. It's not a special spray adhesive, this is just a standard everyday spray adhesive, not high heat. I don't need anything like that with this. Trim off the excess. So if you can see here, I've cut the foam short here. This is just to allow for the seam to fit in there a little bit better, because you've got two layers of fabric, or I have two layers of leather where the seam is. I want to kind of not make it quite as a big bulky area. If I had the foam underneath, it'd be bulky or bulkier, because I'm trimming it away like this, and I'm going to leave a gap, so I'm going to do the same on the top piece. There'll be a gap in the actual foam. So I'm just going to use that to stop any glue getting onto this bit here underneath there. I don't want any of the contact adhesive on here. I'll put that there in place. So that's now wrapped in the foam. I'll put it to one side and I'll get on with cutting the leather. So because this is leather, I can't pin the pattern to the leather. So just use tape and tape it down. So I'm adding a very small seam allowance to this. So I'm adding on here the width of the ruler. So that's both the side pieces drawn out. I now need to do just the top piece. So here at this point is where I'm going to add the extra that I need to allow for the leather to fit into the little recess. The width of the ruler. We'll add the seam allowance all the way on both sides. And here is where I need to add extra. So it's 1/4 inch in total. 1/4 inch there. There. Might not seem like a lot, but it's enough. It'll do what I need it to do. I'll just draw that in. And now I will scallop it, so I need it to be like that. And the same like that. There. Same here. So hopefully that will be enough. It should be. I can now cut those 3 pieces out and then sew them together. So I've now sewn the 3 pieces together and they fit alright. What I actually need to do now is to wet this area here, but I'm going to wet it from the underside, just to allow it to stretch here. So that should be enough. I also need to put some glue in here. Well, getting this into the correct position will be very important. I'll get this corner in here first. Just hold that into position with a couple of staples. And do the same with this one here. So I'm going to work down one side first, so I'll do this side first. And what I need to do is to pin this into the correct position. So I need to eye down here, and then I'm just going to pin this through the stitch holes so I don't put any holes in the leather, and just pin it into position just so it's straight. I'll remove these pins later, obviously. couple of staples at the back here. So I may have to take some of these out and readjust. So I'm just going to get them into position. Now I can move on to this side. Do the same. Yeah, happy with that. So what I'm going to do now, before I actually finish stapling everything on, is to get this bit here glued in position. I don't know if you can see that I have got excess fabric here, or leather here and here. So I'm going to try and pull that in. Hopefully this should just help to pull it in. This piece of wood here I'm going to actually glue to this piece of wood here, because once I've clamped this into position, it's going to be very tight, and I think I'll struggle to get it out if I don't have something to grab hold of, or at least put a screw in and pull it out. So I will just make sure this is free of any crap. Just want enough glue to hold it into position so it doesn't pop out. And I'm now going to clamp this down to here. Once I've clamped it, I can't move it. I'm going to clamp it to the bench, and then I'm going to leave it overnight, and by morning it should be completely glued down. And then I can remove this, finish off all the stapling on this part, cut the recess for the gear shifter, staple that in position, and I'll give it a test fit after that. Now, I've never used wood glue to glue leather down, but I've used wallpaper paste. Now, wallpaper paste works. It's just a water-based glue at the end of the day, and so is wood glue, so I can't see why it wouldn't work. But only time will tell. So that, hopefully, should be fine. Even if the glue hasn't held, I can always take this out, remove all the staples, and then glue it in with some contact adhesive if I need to, and then re-staple everything. But yeah, we're not too bad there now. We're pretty straightish along that line. It's not absolutely perfect, but I can adjust it all later. So I'll see you in the morning, and we're taking these clamps off, and hopefully it's all glued into position. Once it is, I'll finish it off and then get on to the front part. So this has now been left overnight. I've took the clamps off. I'm going to leave this block here on, just to make doubly sure that the glue is actually dried. Because I've wet this part of the leather here, the glue may take a little bit longer than normal to actually dry properly. So I'm going to leave this on as long as I can. I can probably leave it on until, you know, for days if I want to, which I probably will. I can finish everything else on this part anyway with this still in place. It's not an issue, and it's still tight in its spot. so it will still be applying pressure. So I'll finish stapling this off. I'll fit this into the vehicle, make sure it all fits nicely, and then I can offer the front part open, make sure that actually fits with this now that it's covered in leather. Everything seems to be in a decent position. The seams are relatively straight, but I will kind of tweak them a little bit as I go along, just to make sure they are perfectly straight. So now I need to cut this away here and then bring the leather around the back, cut a piece for this top rail here, and then do any trimming off that I need to do. So we're not looking too bad with that. So I'm using the hand stapler because I don't have quite enough room to get the air stapler in there. Trim all these bits off later. So I'll offer this up to the vehicle now and just see if everything's all right. It should be. So if you want to see how well that fits in there, you'll have to tune into part 3. Thanks for watching. Bye.